and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Must be a little delay.
There must be.
All right, please all silence your phones or put them dead or whatever you want to do, but don't have them ringing. Okay, it's public comments. This is time for public comments. Council may ask questions, but may not take no action during public comments section of this meeting, except to direct staff to prepare an item, a report, or place an item on future agenda. If you are here to make comments on a specific agenda item, you may speak at that time. If not, this is a time. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Speakers, please speak from the podium, state your name and mailing address so the staff, city staff can respond to you in regard to the comment or provide you with information if appropriate. You are not required to state your name and address if you do not desire to do so. Do we have any public comments? No. Okay, well, we'll move on then. We have a proclamation, which I don't think there's anybody here to receive the proclamation, I don't see. Negative. So this proclamation is for the Red Cross, American Red Cross for the month of 2020. Do you want me to read a little bit of this? Or no?
Mayor Pro Tem, if you would just read the title, and
Okay.
we will make sure that they get it.
Well, it's American Red Cross 2020, so it was, the title and that is it.
That's it? Okay.
That's all, is Red Cross Month of 2020, yes. March is American Red Cross Month at a time when we recognize the humanitarian organization that eases people's suffering during the life's emergencies in America, Yreka, across the United States and around the world. The Northern California chapter of American Red Cross has a long history of helping our neighbors in need by delivering shelter. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Awesome.
We will
We'll
deliver.
get this to the appropriate
Yes.
people, I should assume. Thank you. All right, we'll start this off then. Number 1, discussion, possible action, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion or a member of the audience wishes to comment on an item. The city manager recommends approval of the following consent calendar items. A, approval ratification of payments issued from March 6th through March 19th, 2020. B, approval of minutes of the meeting held on March 5th, 2020. And C, acknowledge receipt of 2019 General Plan Annual Housing Element Progress Report. What is the wishes?
Actually, I would like to approve A, B, and C with the correction to the minutes regarding item number 3, which.
I sent out an email to
Yes.
everybody, so everybody has it, so you don't need to.
Correct.
Oh, okay, then yes.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes, it's a motion.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried then.
I didn't hear Joan say anything.
Oh, Joan, did you holler on that one? Joan?
I said aye, but I was confused, so now I'm saying aye.
Okay, we got aye from her. Okay, good, thank you. Good, I'm glad you caught that. Okay, number 2, presentation, discussion, Yreka Chamber of Commerce presentation. I assume that's you?
That would be.
Awesome.
I'm gonna do just a brief introduction to say
Oh.
that we've been talking to the chamber, but come on up. But, yeah, sure, go ahead and make that happen. That would be great. Go ahead. Oh, okay.
I'll be on this.
You'll be on that? Okay.
Yeah.
We asked the Chamber of Commerce to come and make a presentation about their future plans. And so that's why Brandon is here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
I got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I thought I would give you time to set that up, but I guess you didn't need it. So.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Bethay, the Vice President of the current Yreka Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight just to do a short presentation for you guys with our annual recap. This is also our quarterly meeting, so by all means, at the end of the presentation, I'll be here to answer any questions you guys have pertaining to the chamber. So our annual meeting we had just this last early February here, went over our year-end recap with our members. Some of our council was there. Thank you for joining us. But for the ones that weren't there, I wanted to just recap for you guys, kind of go over where the chamber's at, the vision that we have, and open it up for any questions you guys may have for you there. So our profit and loss and income statements, 45.9% coming from the city of Yreka. So our income that we receive from the city is greatly appreciated, so thank you guys. We were able to thank you guys in person that night, but to the ones that weren't there, thank you so much for your continued contributions to the Chamber of Commerce. 41.4% derived from special events and activities, so we are raising funds with our special events and different things of that nature. 16.5% funded from membership dues. It's a little bit lower, but we still are, in the 20% range there. And then 6.75% of our income coming from the Mat and Guide. Overall for the year, just over $100,000 in total income for the Chamber of Commerce. Then additionally, we had donations received of $18,840. That was for 2 events, the fireworks this year that we ran in conjunction with Rain Rock Casino and the other activities within the community, and then also the breast cancer walk, which we raised funds for. Our expenses, we were almost dead even for this year, so we had $100,000 in income, we had $101,000 in expenses. Our payroll and payroll taxes making up 61.1% of all those expenses. That equals all funding from the city as well as our membership dues. And 11.8% spent on special events and activities. Donations paid out, $18,747. $13,000 of that went towards the July 4th show, and then $5,750 towards the breast cancer walk. Focus. So our focus for expenses, this is a recap after looking at both the income and the expenses that we have coming out. Our payroll and payroll taxes, obviously that's why we've had the big changes in the chamber that we've had. We eliminated one position, which was the administrative assistant for the chamber. And then since that recourse, we've also had the executive director resign. So we are searching for a new executive director. We made that decision in light of a 61% expense rate for the Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, payroll and payroll tax is a big portion of that. It's very needed for those positions, but we really felt like with some of the actions that we're currently taking, we could get that number down to a 40%, which is our target. Our target is to shoot for 40% of our expenses going into payroll and payroll taxes, which is the reason why we're cutting back to one team member. And then we'd also like to reallocate more expenses into special events. So 11.6% to me, when I was the treasurer at the time, was a little bit low. I'd like to see that number more in the 20 to 25% range. Meaning we're devoting more of our funds towards marketing dollars and putting on better events for the city. In community involvement projects, it's also on our projections to do for the year. So any of the funds that we raise in excess of our income or expense this year, obviously we had a minor deficit there, but in future years we hope to devote any of those future income that we have towards community projects, i.e. redesigning the business billboard type thing when you first come off of 776 or exit 773 there. Marketing funds to promote the chamber and activities. Membership's a little bit low. We would definitely like to see that number rise. So we're obviously searching for an executive director to combat that for us.
Can I ask a question?
What's it?
Do you have somebody in, has it been looking at the executive director position yet? Has anybody
Yes and no.
applied for? Or no?
So we've had about 12 applicants. We've
Okay.
interviewed 5 different individuals, but at this time we have not made a decision yet on the executive director. There's quite a few things that come into that, and I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit. But we are actively seeking an executive director. We would definitely like to get somebody on board and get them trained up and start moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's hard to find a perfect fit.
The rest of the stuff was mostly just balance sheet, going over, where we're at with our general funds. I can go through some of that if you guys want. It's really about just the money we have in our accounts. I'm gonna
Question.
Go ahead.
What's your total cash reserves?
So our total cash reserves, that's the balance sheet there. So we have, at the time that we did this presentation, we just paid out because we lost 2 team members. So we paid out, we took a hit with payroll taxes and final checks and things of that nature. We usually keep our Our general fund, about $10,000. At the time of this presentation was $5,500. That number has since gone up because obviously we do not have payroll and payroll taxes right now. So we're kind
You don't
of,
have any savings accounts or anything like
we
that?
do, that's just the general fund that we
Well,
have.
how much in savings?
And then we have the money market, which is $38,639. Our special events fund, which is $10,000. Gift certificate fund, which is about $13,500. So total assets that we have in reserve there, you know, with long-term, short-term, general funds, everything along those lines, we have about $85,000 in the bank. At the time of this presentation, which again was early February, we have, you know, stockpiled a little bit, we've paid out a little bit in gift certificates, not much, probably about 3,000 or 4,000, but you know, we continue to get the funding from the city, and we don't have any payroll or taxes right now, so we're starting to build up a little bit more of a cushion in our general fund. So, all in all, there's kind of the ratios that we look at. Here we go. So the number, kind of for a nonprofit center, one of your main primary things that you want to look at is your months to cash ratio, which is a good question, Norman, on how much cash we actually have on hand. Your months to cash equivalent is really what's your monthly expense, including payroll, all of the different things, everything that we have, all of our typical fixed expenses, you know, rent, utilities, payroll, those things that aren't gonna just go away, versus how much actual cash you have on hand, not long-term cash. So that would include like the investments and things of that nature. So at the time of this presentation, we had about $68,000 of actual cash on hand that was not rolled into stocks or anything, you know, that's not a part of the long-term savings. Our monthly expense is about $9,200, so our month to cash ratio is about 7.3. And ideally, for a nonprofit, you want to be above 6 months. So we're in a good spot for our months to cash ratio. The other equation they kind of look at is an equation called Luna. Anybody familiar with Luna? I wasn't when I did this presentation, and I'm pretty savvy in the business world, but it's liquid unrestricted net assets, and that's again, our total net assets is $85,000. Property, land, and equipment, because we do have the storage facility that the chamber has owned for quite a long time, and a couple other assets that we had on hand of $17,602, and then long-term assets was $52,292. So when you minus those two out, our Luna is $15,915. So in terms of liquid unrestricted net access, we have about a 2 months reserve, and we would definitely like to see that number. You want to be primarily above 4. The month is kind of the calculation that you shoot for there. So we were a little bit low on that, but that's also because we just paid out all the payroll taxes and took a hit for making sure that we fulfilled our obligations to our team members that we have that were with us. Also in this presentation, we went a little bit over like what the chamber had accomplished in the past year, successful events, inclusion of a couple of new events. Obviously, we picked up the 4th of July. We hope to continue that with partnership with the city, pick up a few more partnerships. The chamber and Rain Rock Casino have a good working partnership that's not going to go away. Rain Rock will continue to facilitate the property to be able to shoot those nice, lovely 6-inch mortars, and the chamber will keep facilitating the ability to kind of handle the funding and do the fundraising and get the community involvement behind it. So we can hopefully grow that to a much larger scale. They also picked up the Spring Clean Car Show being held at Rain Rock Casino again, but they also picked up a few events that weren't necessarily involving myself, including the Wine Walk, which was an excellent event. We had over 200 participants in that event, and I'm sure that would grow year over year. Nice. And that was kind of the gist of our recap. Obviously, we went into a long question and answer, and hopefully answered some of the questions the community have, and I'd like to open that same opportunity up to you guys. Fire away any questions you have. I know that there's some pending, questions that are on the council's mind and the direction that we're gonna go and the things that we have in place. So I'd like to open that up to you guys. Anything you have for me?
Well, the city council is giving you a notice of default and demand for cure and correction. And it's several different items. Tourism, marketing, and promotional efforts, there's a whole bunch of things there. Business and community outreach efforts like educational training for businesses and seminars that would help grow the membership growth, I think. And the other thing is special events production. So what the council wants to see is how you're gonna deal with this in the next month so we can decide whether the city wants to go forward with this.
Sure. So the chamber has met with Steve and the mayor, and we discussed it in depth, kind of gave some of that vision, but to give the full council the vision that the chamber has. Obviously, our immediate priority is to find the executive director to kind of help fill that role. We are being selective because one of the deficits that the chamber would like to get away from is the cycling of an executive director every 2 years. We would like to keep somebody that is committed to this community and really has ties here and will be a long-term valuable asset for the chamber. So we're not taking that lightly. We're not just hiring as I say, we've had over 15 qualified applicants and several interviews, and at this time, we still have not made a selection. So we will continue to search for that. In light of that, that means the rest of the board has stepped up. We ran a successful Citizen of the Year. We got through our annual meeting, and now we're focusing on Gold Rush Days and getting all that planning done. We had a planning meeting that was scheduled for last night, actually, and unfortunately, due to some of the closures and some of the business things that some of our board members have had to do, we didn't actually have a chance to meet. However, we still have planning in place. Our new president, Dustin, has really stepped up to the plate and seen a lot of great things coming from him. Myself, we have a new treasurer, Chris, who's joined us and providing a lot of hindsight behind that as well. So we do have a lot of planning in place. The closures, all of the planning, the stuff that the chamber does for Gold Rush Days will be submitted to you guys within the next week. We had hoped to have that ready for you tonight to have it turned into Arthur, but unfortunately, Dustin's been working pretty much 18-hour days. Rayleigh's is getting hammered in town. So, and then with myself, with the closure of the casino and several of other board members who just haven't really had the time. But we definitely have every intention of tackling those. So for planning, we're on track. There was a kind of a jumble when we passed the torch. When we lost our executive director, it was not planned and it was not exactly turned over well. So there was kind of a moment where the board at large had to step up to the plate and kind of tackle the learning curve and go through the thing. So we'll learn and we'll get through it and we'll fulfill our commitment as always. So for outreach programs, we had already had that part of our strategic planning. We talked about it in our meeting. Some of the things that I'm bringing to the table is my media group, Impact Media Group out of Chico. We already have a Facebook small business social media marketing strategy put in place that will open up to community members. It'll be free for chamber members, and then business at large, it'll be a small fee, and that's just to cover lunch and things like that. So it'll be like $25 or $30 for them to attend. And Impact Media Group is a top 5%er nationwide. They're part of a conglomerate that does new wave social media impact. They're very, very savvy on all things related to social media. So for instance, Rain Rock Casino, they're our partner, we utilize them. We get almost 6 times the rates of click-through, shares, comments as our competitors. And our immediate competitors is Seven Feathers and Wind River. So when you're looking at the numbers, so we've grown from a page of brand new casino of 0 likes to a membership of over 5,000 people in 2 years, which is, if you follow social media, that's a lot. So in comparison, Seven Feathers, who's been open for 25 years, to date only has 12,000. So we've closed that gap in that short of a period of time, and it continues to grow at least at the rate of 6 times per month. So when it comes to knowledge that they can supply to this community, it's unparalleled.
So I got a question. Are you gonna, I know you're giving us a presentation here, which is great, and I appreciate that. Are you gonna give us some type of documentation of what your intents are for the future? What you're gonna bring to the table, what the executive director is gonna bring to the table, so we have something for future reference, so we can know where you really stand. I mean, it's one thing to give a presentation, all of us can do that, but it's another thing to have something in writing to where we know what's actually gonna.
If you'd like that, we will get it to you. My hopes is that the chamber and council relationship heals itself. I will be here to do a presentation for you guys every 3 months as part of our, unified contract and getting back to you guys. So the open communication that will always be there for you guys. Up till now, it was kind of, we had, our officers were reelected in February. So up to that point, we were kind of, as a board, just kind of waiting for the change of the torch, and now that we're there, we will move forward with our vision. And the board that we have has a lot of vision, and we have a lot of people that will, step up to the plate. We have board members that have been on the board for 4 years that are now learning payroll because we just don't have anybody to do it for us. So, everybody's stepped up, and we're all full-time employees at other avenues, but now we're full-time employees and then full-time chamber members. I know that I've
I don't
lots
feel, I know I was on the
lots of
chamber for
hours.
many years, and so was Debbie, we were both on chamber for many years.
Yeah, so-
we know about running business and being on the chamber, being proactive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's-
Myself or Dustin will get you guys a rundown. We've discussed the thing. So another thing that I haven't discussed tonight is also the partnership that the board unanimously decided to partner with Discover Siskiyou. So we'll be doing office share space. So one of the things that was important to us is that we offer this great big office that the city kindly pays for us, and it's kind of underutilized. Discover Siskiyou is in need of office space until their new home is completed, and so it just makes sense for us to partnership with them. It provides them a home, and it provides a staple for tourism and visitor center. Combining the two together, the chamber activities can really focus on our business stuff, which is where we're weak at right now. It will also allow us to have an executive director that can spend more time in the field communicating with those small businesses instead of being tied to an office that's required to be open 5 days a week. Discover Siskiyou will now share that space with us, and will be able to assist us in answering questions for people that come into the office.
Debbie?
I'm glad you covered that, because my concern was, I know the chamber is a trade entity, but I'm a little gray on if it's considered a not-for-profit entity, and I'm assuming that it is. That's why I've always thought that it should be at least a person and a half in there, because we need someone to cover the tourism side. And I didn't see how you were going to have one person do the tourism side, which is in the contract, and do outreach for the chamber and help with business development, because that's an awful lot of hats for one person. So I see you're making plans to cover everything.
We do indeed.
Okay.
And then even outside of that, so the Discover Siskiyou partnership will be at least minimum 2 years. Their facility is not going to be ready for 2 years. After that, it might be a continued partnership where the chamber moves with them in their new facility. Their new facility will have more space, more than ample space for us. We're hoping that within that 2-year block, we can build a beautiful partnership that's not just inclusive of our chamber. We also discussed of kind of doing an outreach program and building on making this a county chamber. So we will start with smaller cities like Montague, Etna, Fort Jones, that just aren't to the size that can run a full-on chamber. Develop them, incorporate that to them. That will also help our board by being able to reach out and maybe pick up a few more board members within, our small community. Ultimately, what we would love to do is make it a county chamber that's, we've done a lot of research on it. We've talked to the guy in the state that pretty much runs the chambers, and after discussion with him, he said really the only chambers that are surviving are the ones that consolidate, or the ones that re-strategize and rebrand away from chambers. He said in the current day and age, chamber, the model is just kind of not performing as well as it can. There are models that are working, but usually it's larger cities or consolidation of smaller cities into something that's bigger than the greater whole.
Okay, and the other item that I wanted to discuss was the Citizen of the Year banquet. Formally, I've seen it around 100 to 200 people. changing through the years. And I think we only had about 62 or 63, so I'm hoping there'll be some creative ideas to help that develop back to what it used to be and more respectful. Although it was a beautiful, lovely, intimate event, but more of a celebration for our volunteers as well.
Especially the citizen of the year, you know, that's something that we treasure as a community, and highlight the people that do that sort of thing, that's volunteers or puts their self out there for so many years. It's been recognized for so many years, and it's been a huge event, and it was a huge moneymaker back in the day too. And it's,
I know times are changing,
I know,
but I'd like to see it back up there again.
We have every intention of focusing on those events and making them the best they can be. This year, obviously, that was right during the time frame when we got hit with the staffing problems that we had. The main person that does all of our coordinating, all of our event planning, all of our marketing, all of our everything, just up and the board had to pick up the pieces. So we did the best that we could with what we had. We would have loved to have seen it be a bigger event with more bells and whistles, absolutely. But we'll be putting our thinking hats on and moving forward with our best foot and producing what we can.
Awesome, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
One more question.
Sure.
Have you, as far as hiring an executive director, do you have like a job description, or have you built some type of criteria, job description for this person yet?
We'll include that with the letter that we sent you guys. So actually, myself and Nancy, and this goes back to kind of the strategic planning the chamber was taking leading up to months ago. So we had redesigned the executive director job description about 5-6 months ago. I was the treasurer at the time, so I did extensive research on comparison within the job market, what the wage comparisons should be from town to town. I looked at Chamber of Commerce's from Washington, Nevada, Idaho, California, Nevada, comparing not just county size but city size, funding versus non-funding, all of those different things to see where we were even in the competitive market of where we should pay our executive director. So part of that, plus we ground up redesigned the job description. We went through and looked at all aspects of here's everything that we need an executive director to do. And part of that was because the chamber felt that there needed to be accountability within our team members. So the only way we're going to strategically get to where we want is by holding ourselves accountable internally, and that started with our executive director. And then eventually our game plan was to have the executive director then hold the assistant accountable, and a trickle down effect. And things just kind of played out the way that they are. But we looking at it as an opportunity to, now we have someone that can kind of see our vision of the current board and move forward with that and really give it the best that the chamber can. So we have the right vision and people in place to really make something great, and I wholeheartedly believe that it will. We just need to have some time to put the stones in place, in essence.
It's hard anytime you restructure anything. It's not an overnight thing, even though we try to make it as fast as possible. It's nothing that's easily achieved overnight by no means. So I'm glad that you have some type of format for your new executive director coming into place. When we were on the board also, there was nothing written up for our executive director at the time, so we had to whole list of.
There's been a couple of things it's not just the executive director position. We've gone through and revisited the bylaws.
Good.
We've, all of those different things that we have, all of the phases that are missing with subcommittees, with the officers, the formal election. This year I think is the year that we kind of got back to an actual formal. Here's your officers. This is how long they served for, following our own internal bylaws and things of that nature. So we're on the right track. We're getting there. I know the city's concerned, and especially rightfully so, when there's change and we haven't reported back to you guys, and you hear all these different things. But rest assured that our new officers within the board are very committed. There's a lot more activity. I've been on the board for 2 years, and I can honestly say in the last 5 months, there's been as much commitment and time and effort placed into the chamber as there was in the entire previous 2 years. So, I mean, that says a lot for the board, the people that are stepping up and really putting their foot forward, so.
Awesome. Great. Anybody else have any questions?
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Much
Thank you
appreciated.
guys. Again, the chamber is very grateful to the city. Thank you guys for all of your support. We hope to continue to build a better bond, and definitely be more open both ways.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Keep us informed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Thank you.
I forgot you were there, Joan.
Yeah, you are still alive, Joan? Yes?
I'm still here.
Oh, good. We're gonna move on to number 3 then. Discuss and possible action, review of draft resolution initiating proceedings for the formation of a recreation and park district.
Okay.
Oops.
I'm sorry, I wasn't following. I wanted to ask Dawn,
Fine.
if it's a discussion, do I need to leave? Because I have to vote on it. If it's
If we're talking about.
later at LAFCO, do I?
If we're doing the LAFCO part, yeah.
I don't believe you have a conflict on LAFCO either.
Oh, really?
I think you can vote here and you can vote on LAFCO. You have separate positions, but those positions are as a result of your having tenure on the city council. So, unless they've told you that you have a conflict, I don't think you have one.
Did you hear that, Joan?
Really?
Yeah.
Joan, did you hear that also?
I heard that.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of
Don and I
stunned.
talked about that previously, and Don knows that Debbie is the chair of LAFCO. And I believe that those are 2 entirely different positions. I'm comfortable with that. How about you, Debbie?
Well, even though I will be voting
Sure,
or
of course
making
you
a
will be.
recommendation when it hits that level,
Yep.
okay, we go to jail together.
Yep. You bet.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
No, I've represented, when I was county council, I represented, the board of supervisors and the LAFCO. And, each of the board of supervisors that were members of LAFCO voted in each position.
Well, I don't have to make that long trek up there now, so
Yeah.
I'm good.
Right.
Thank you. Okay,
All righty then.
never mind.
Well, then I'll just continue in parentheses. Yreka Recreation and Park District provide direction to staff. And that was it. Now it goes to Steve.
Thank you. This is actually a discussion tonight, but
Yes.
this is in preparation for April 2nd, assuming that we have a meeting under the new rules on that date. We have noticed a public hearing. So let me talk a little bit about this, and some of this you've already heard, but we sent a letter to LAFCO indicating that we had scheduled a hearing on April 2nd for the purpose of forming a recreation and park district to submit to LAFCO. Part of that would also be to put something on the ballot measure. That's a later action that on the November ballot as a measure. That'd be a later action that would have to be taken, and the district would be contingent on having that pass, because without funding, not much point in a district. I want to, first of all, there was some questions last time
Yes.
about the costs, and I left a blank in here inadvertently, but it was because I was still researching the costs. But down under city costs, I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of $9,000, $11,000, maybe a little bit less than that, depending on how much time it takes us from here. We've had some legal fees or some publication costs, and then when it comes to the actual measure, we want to make sure that it's done correctly, and that's where our city attorney gets involved. And
Yes.
we also vet it with whatever the successor to the Board of Equalization is. I don't remember what it's called now.
The Department of Tax and Fees Administration.
The Department of Tax and Fee Administration. Okay. I don't know why I can't remember that. But doesn't have a-
exactly roll off
doesn't
the
roll off
tongue.
the tongue.
So we have, on the Board of Equalization fees, you have $350 to $3,000. That's kind of broad. I don't know, why is that so broad?
Because I really don't have
You have no
anybody I can
idea?
ask about what exactly those costs are. Let me just go over the costs, since
Okay.
that's what we're talking about. The LAFCO application fee, it's probably gonna be about 2,400. I have 2,800 in here because there's a range of fees, but I believe it'll be 2,400, but I put the higher number. The feasibility study, when we talked to, more accurately, emailed back and forth with the consultant for LAFCO, it sounded like a separate feasibility study would not be necessary, so those costs are incorporated up in the application fee. The Board of Equalization fees, as you note, have a pretty wide range, and I'm not sure exactly how to tie that down at this point, so we left that range in. The county assessor charges, we communicated with the auditor and told them what we were doing and what we expected the charges to be, and then, and they said it really doesn't work that way. What you need to do is talk to the Board of Equalization. So as far as we can tell, the Board of Equalization number would include what the auditor would have had to do under the model, or else if there's some other things that they have to do, it would be included in the LAFCO fee. But that could change, and we weren't sure exactly whether that would be something that would come in after a successful measure or not. So there's a little bit of fuzziness, but we wanted to put some numbers in there. The election costs for the ballot measure, estimating the exact cost is difficult because the elections people are still processing from the last election.
Oh, geez.
So they have that time schedule, and that's the way that California works.
Yeah.
So
Pretty typical, I guess.
what we did is we looked at the last election in Measure C, or the 2016 election, and between council and Measure C, that was in the neighborhood of $2,800. Now, as you recall, the area includes parcels outside the city as part of the district. So as a result of that, it will be more than that. We don't know. So we put in the range of $5,000, and always when we get these estimates, it always says, this is an estimate, so even if we got an estimate from them, it would be an estimate, and it depends on the number of agencies that are actually on the ballot in November, which you won't know until, I think, August. So anyway, I think 5,000 is a good number. I'm hoping that it's high. And then we already talked about the city staff, attorney, and publication costs in there. I'm also hoping that those will be a little bit lower, but again, we want to make sure that anything that the council puts on to the ballot or sends to LAFCO is done correctly. So this resolution is on your next meeting. Assuming that is passed and forwarded to LAFCO, then they do their process. There are a number of hearing notices that they send out. There's a final decision that they make. They also send out to other relevant agencies. For example, very clearly, in this case, the county needs to be involved because it's partly within their territory. So as my understanding, they handle that. So that's where we are. The proposal would be that improved property would be assessed $96, unimproved property $40, and it's expected to raise approximately $390,000. Now that does reference a budget that we received from the proponents, who could not be here tonight because of self-isolation requests. So this budget is actually off a little bit because at that point they were looking at us to do a property tax transfer of $75,000. Now, what we've done instead is having that in the agreement. There could be an agreement between the district and the city on money that we may need to that may be fair to transfer to them to operate certain facilities, but that would be negotiated as opposed to imposed through this process. Obviously, the pool didn't get funded.
Right.
So if the district is formed, until and unless the pool is funded, they would have money coming in that wouldn't go directly to that. Their intent, should that happen, of course, is to reapply for money through the state parks program, the Prop 2 money. We did talk to the state, and the state has told us there's about $400 million left and that'll either get parceled out in one round or 2 rounds. They don't really know, the state doesn't really know. That would have to show up in the governor's budget. It didn't show up in the governor's budget back in January. However, the League of California Cities is saying everyone's ignoring that first budget anyway, so new day in May, and that's when we would know whether it was gonna be in the next fiscal year or sometime later, and whether it would be all of the money or just some of the money. So that would come up. So, with that, what we wanted to do is put this in front of you so that if there were questions where we needed to go back and do some research, we could do that. So that when this comes before you on the 2nd, obviously you'll have public comment and perhaps some questions then, but in order for this to have any chance of making the November ballot, we're trying to move it from our process to the LAFCO process, which can be long as well, but at least we'll have our part done. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And the city attorney is here as well.
Got any more? Any questions?
Well, the question I have is, I think it's the wrong time to do this. I mean, the pool grant got denied, and without the pool, I think the chances of this passing is very, very slim. We're talking $9,000 to $11,000 now, which I think is a good dream. It'd be wonderful if it passed, but to get a 2/3 vote in this climate now with the economy is going south. People's 401k plans are down 30%. They're talking about a 20% unemployment rate. The governor's saying 20 million people might get infected with this virus. The death rate could be in the range of 20,000 to 500,000 people in California alone. So I think it's the wrong time. I think we should just delay this for now.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I hadn't thought about that, so
I mean, things have drastically changed in the last 2 weeks.
they have.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
a lot of different avenues as far as that
Yeah.
goes.
To get people to approve this by a 2/3 vote, I think is,
But things could change drastically the other way in one month turnaround time too, you know, that's the thing. If we don't continue a certain process at this point in time, that, I mean, this next step at least, you know, going in front of LAFCO and doing that, if we just start shooting it down at this point in time, then we shoot it down for the rest of the year, and things do straighten up as far as our economy, which is very likely to happen. I think optimistically in that aspect, to think that things will straighten out, especially here in Siskiyou County. I look at, we're not gonna get hit as hard as the rest of California for one thing. It's proven over time. I've lived here all my life, and I see the fluctuation go like this, where other places in the United States are up and down more drastic. So I don't think our economy is gonna get affected as much, and I think that, I really feel that our locals will step up to the plate more. I really do, so
that's
that's.
another question.
Sure.
Is there a way that this could come from the citizens as a citizens initiative instead of the city pushing? I feel it has a better chance of passing if the citizens submitted a petition with, I don't know how many signatures they would need, 1,500 or more to get it on the ballot. They would have a better chance of passing.
The proponents actually looked at that to do it that way and decided not to do it that way. I'm just presenting what they did. And because one of the things that we were looking at is that a citizens initiative might change the ballot, whether it's a majority or a 2/3 vote.
Right.
But that's not settled in law necessarily at this point.
Well, that's
Yeah.
not settled in law, but I
That's
mean, I
correct.
think that if they had showed more community support, I think it might be a better chance of passing.
So I will tell you what they told me now, and this is, as you pointed out, things have changed in the last couple of weeks, but what the proponents told me was that they wanted to keep the momentum of all of the work that went into preparing the pool grant and trying to keep everyone on board to work on this measure. They'd already talked to a lot of people, and that's why they were moving forward at this time, even though at the time that I talked to them, we had found out that the pool grant was not funded. So I'm not necessarily arguing with you as much as just presenting, because they're not here, what that discussion was at that time.
Well, I think when it comes back in 2 weeks, that they should be prepared to explain why they shouldn't go that way, because I think that might be a better way of getting it passed.
Or getting a feel of what the community.
Right, because if they can't even get the signatures to put it on the ballot, there's no chance it's gonna pass.
So, I guess in that mind, what is our next step then?
Well, we're not taking any action tonight,
No.
it's just discussion.
I realize that.
This was really so obviously your formal action will be on the second
Right.
at this point, that it's scheduled for, but this was really to see if there was anything in here that there were questions on, so that if everything, if it goes forward, then, it could be done in a timely manner as
Right.
opposed to, it makes a difference, obviously, if a final decision's made on April 2nd versus some later date in terms of the LAFCO process. So
It's time sensitive.
that was
Yeah,
what it was.
That's why I look at it.
Right, and also, there were some questions that came up last time that we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to tell you what we thought, like some of the costs would be, and there were a few other questions as we dug into it. There were different answers. And
Right.
to me, it seems like a little bit of a moving target, but we thought we tied down things pretty well
Yeah.
to at least knowing what the costs were and most of the procedural steps, at least that we would be involved in.
Actually, the cost doesn't scare me at all.
No, that's
Doesn't.
a small price for what could.
To be supportive of
Yeah.
the
If we're-
wants
if-
and needs of the
like you said, if
community.
it's-
Yeah.
Exactly. If it's a support of the community, then it's a small price. Rather than-
There is one thing you could do in the resolution, and that's specifically request that LAFCO, instead of charging the regular application fee, just charge costs only. They have the discretion to do that.
Oh.
And if you'd like to add that to the resolution, you
Oh,
could
that's a
do
good
that.
point. Yeah, that would be good. Thank you. I know you can't comment on that, but.
We're having costs only as long as they're lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Awesome. All right, any more questions? Do we have comments? Joan, do you have any comment? Are you still awake?
I've been listening, I'm awake, and I've been saying, and Norm brought up some really good things I hadn't thought of.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what's the direction from here then?
Right now, we're just going to the next meeting then.
Right, we've already noticed that.
Okay, that sounds,
All right, great.
okay, that sounds good.
Thank you. All righty. If that's all we have, then I guess we'll move on.
Yes, I think we have sufficient direction from you. So the next item is city manager staff report.
Yes.
As you have noted, any staff that didn't actually have an item on the agenda is here.
Yes, I see that.
With
Except
the,
for me.
with the exception of Liz, who has so many rules.
She
Yes.
does.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that we've been giving you, as the council, regular coronavirus updates. The rules are changing, as we've told you, for this meeting. This may be the last meeting that you have for a while in this particular
Setting.
format, because of trying to make sure that we don't have more than 10 people in a room, and there's a lot of different things that we'll have to do in order to make. I think we made it.
I think so.
We're really close. I don't think they're
Really
coming
close.
for us. So that's one thing. There has not been, to my knowledge, at this point, on Tuesday is when I actually got official word, but there has not been a case happened where they've tested. It always sounds funny. To me, a positive test is a bad thing, but anyway, a positive test. And so I still believe that to be the case. We will be monitoring what other cities are doing in preparation for the time where, if there are further actions that need to be taken, we hopefully will have their examples of what to do and what not to do, and then adjust those as appropriate for our small rural agency, as well as the conditions here in Siskiyou County. So you'll keep seeing that from us. If you would like, I can put all of you on a list from the public health there's a mailing list for the public health that I could put you on. They're gonna put out announcements, I believe, on Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you'd like, we can do that. I think I've been forwarding some of that information to you
Yes, please.
Thank you.
as well. And as I've said, I think that my coronavirus email is increasing by 50%
Oh,
a
I'm
day.
sure, yeah.
And it just seems like it's going up. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't want to make any other long staff reports tonight, but I did want to, there was a request for an update on park host. And I
Yes.
wanted to bring down
Thank you.
our Director of Public Works, Matt Bray, and have him give you a very brief update on where things are.
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Matthew Bray, Director of Public Works. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this at a meeting, because I need to dispel rumor that the park host program is on the ropes in any manner. That's complete rumor. I've fielded any number of calls over the last month. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's untrue. The city has no intent to shutter the parks
Good.
host
Good, I'm glad you're
program.
announcing that, because
So-
that is important to the citizens.
That said,
Fake news.
we were just trying not to say that, Don. Just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were notified by Carl and Sandy, the current park hosts, that they have been volunteering for the city at the park for coming up on about 17 months now. They would like a break, so they asked if there was any way we could allow that to happen starting around early June. June 11th is what they were proposing, and that they would like to return October 1st. So the nice thing about that is that they would like to return on October 1st. So we just have a defined moment, a defined time frame that we're working towards filling. We had hoped to have a meeting with them today. They were unavailable, so we have scheduled it for 11 o'clock on next Friday. So Renee Hoisington and I are going to probably conference call them and talk it over, because they have ideas. They've been there long enough. They know the program. They know our manual that we've written. They've helped us along the program. So as you may remember, it's a difficult spot to fill. I wanted to reiterate that one more time, that this nationwide, we have these, we've talked about it for years, but it's camp hosts are a thing. Park hosts in this layout aren't really a thing. So it's difficult to find somebody, but Human Resources, Renee and I and Ben, and we're all working as diligently as we possibly can to fill it in Carl and Sandy's absence. I think that's about as brief as I can make that, unless you have any questions.
Well, that's good. It's, I mean, like I said, it's very important to the community. I know Debbie, she walks the lake frequently, and obviously I live close to the lake, and I hear about it all the time. Anytime I'm up there going for a run or a walk or anything, it's very important to the citizens. Having this park host is very important. It puts a sense of security under them. It just keeps things organized and clean and dysfunctional. So it's, to all of us, it's been very important. So I'm glad that it's continuing.
The city gets lots of compliments.
Yes, yes, lots of compliments on it.
We do, and Public Works is well aware that the citizens feel it's a need. So it's been filled and it's there. It just works. Now, that said, we built it on a shoestring budget from a citizen idea through a council member at the time that was flown as a pilot, literally built it on a shoestring on rainy days and Fridays. And there are costs that are included in this that were unseen at the time.
Yeah.
So there are costs to the program. We can dive in deeper at a later date and speak to that. Budget time's coming, so you'll hear from it. From me. So, but Public Works is firm believers, and we stand behind the program that we built. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Anything else, Dad?
That's it. Oh no, one more thing. With the virus, I'm working with staff to try to get an extra word out. So if you can help me with this, there are things called flushable wipes. They're not flushable. They're not supposed to go down your toilet. Whether it says flushable on it or not, they come in a canister like that and they say flushable. Please don't flush them. I've got Facebook posts out. We're trying to get some more flyers put together. I'll be looking at mailers nationwide. I've been tracking it the last couple of days. It was my first concern as the director when when this hit and the toilet paper shortage began. And it is, you know, a lot of folks are giggling about it, but it's, when the stores ran out of toilet paper, people bought paper towels. You're not supposed to flush paper towels. When those ran out, they bought wipes. You're not supposed to flush wipes. And then all these other things that are going down the drain. So nationwide, there's a wastewater collection issue. It's already surfacing. I expect we'll see it in the next 2 days or 3 days, to where we start having sewer backups. And not only the city side, my concern is really for our citizens. That's where my concern lies. Plumbers are professionals, and professionals are expensive. And typically, wipes, paper towels, and that, they will get hung up in the privately owned sewer lateral before it makes it to the city mains. So it's a direct cost to the customer, to our citizens, and I think we'll do our best to get the word out that toilet paper goes down, everything else goes into the trash.
Newsletter.
Yeah.
Right, we don't have time to wait for a newsletter, so we're
Okay.
gonna do everything we can with the Facebook posts and the paper and get that out there, front page news, to let people, it's just something that, it can be avoided, just gotta throw it in the trash.
Anybody that's been on a septic system knows right off the bat, you know.
Right.
We grew up on that. So
Right,
it's
the
like, I
septic
know
systems,
that.
you tend to see it, in the city systems, you don't. It goes down the toilet and goes away, and you think it's gone forever, and it's not, because we still have to deal with that.
Well, and a lot of these, you know, houses, we had our house on Third Street, you know, the sewer line on it was so old, it was still holding together, but it's the old terracotta clay pipes, and roots would get in there and it would get plugged up very easily, so yeah, keeping the unnecessaries out of there is necessary.
Yeah. And in times like this, Public Works is doing everything we can. We're keeping the water going uphill and the other stuff going downhill. And but we're gonna focus in on the hard infrastructure such as that, because that is essential government service at its core. So that is what my entire maintenance division, water division, wastewater division, and fleet, we're all working on that, and that exclusively until the end of this, so.
Awesome.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, anybody else want to, Liz, anything to add?
Form 700, Mayor Joan, Don, and Steve.
I filed mine a long time ago.
I haven't got a copy of it.
I filed it with the state.
Okay, they didn't send me a copy, so if you could mail me a copy, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. And Mayor Joan?
Joni?
No, I haven't yet. We're working on it.
Thank you.
Mine got handled a long time ago. We'll start up.
Good boy.
Council member.
Yeah, but you have somebody we don't have. You have Alice.
Yes, I do. I have a personal assistant, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
So we wanna,
Good job. Okay, did you want me to give an update on all of the conference calls on the COVID-19 that
Not
I've been
really.
on and that?
as long as you can keep it short, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, and I've been on all the White House conference calls, and there's been many of them, as well as the state, through the League of California Cities about the COVID-19 coronavirus to keep us up to date. And Steve and I met with the county public health department with Dr. Pat Bob and Sally Davis, the head of the department, as well as I went to the press conference where they, and also the board of supervisors, where they proclaimed the entire county as a disaster area, not because there are any positive cases of coronavirus in Siskiyou County, but all the counties surrounding us except two, Trinity and Modoc, they all have positive cases. So by doing this, it also opens it up for small businesses to get low-cost loans, sometimes 35-year loans, pretty easily. So talk to our partners at the EDC. They can get you the right information and the paperwork to fill out. Also, the governor just sent out a notice, just in the last 15 minutes. I just got it. So the governor of California has proclaimed a statewide lockdown. It's a stay-at-home ordinance that everyone has to, which is why I'm staying home tonight. I was planning on being there. I was sick at the last meeting with a regular flu. But anyway, we don't want to bring any extra germs into the house. My husband has some health issues, so I'm trying to be a a good responsible person and not bring strange terms in. Not that you all are strange. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that we've been on top of it, and Steve and I are working with, the other cities, I'm trying to keep everyone informed. And, I probably sent all of you out more information than you ever wanted, and I apologize for that, I'm just trying to keep everybody up to date. And it seems like it changes almost hourly,
Yes.
with more restrictions. So we need to be aware, and, I'm thinking, I just wanted to put everybody on notice that this may be the last, face-to-face meeting that we'll be doing for a while, because of what the governor's, requirements are. We may be doing city council meetings online, where everybody can dial into it. Our attorney, Don Hennion, told me that there's something through Zoom, so for $15 a month, we could have 100 people call in.
Oh.
So, we need to look into that, and the next meeting is April 2nd, so hopefully by then we'll be up and going on that.
Great, awesome. Anything else you wanna add, Joe?
Oh, no, there's so much going on right now, but I think with the coronavirus, that takes the top billing right now. And, the League of California Cities has been doing an excellent job of keeping us informed and keeping us on the conference call. Oh, and by the way, Vice President Pence was on the conference call yesterday for the first time. And he said because he was a governor and, he was a local elected, he knows exactly what we're going through, and he appreciates everything we're doing at the local level.
Great, that's awesome. Well, thank you.
That's all, that's all. You're welcome.
So Norm, do you wanna,
Nothing.
nothing to add tonight?
I do have a little bit.
Alrighty.
And I wanted to say at the beginning, because the Chamber of Commerce people are still here, the Ford Foundation put on a nonprofit workshop, which I thought was a grant writing workshop, but they'll get to it on the third class, which they already canceled. But the first class that was held last week was real informative. I would recommend it to any of the board members that wanna go, because I actually learned that every board I've been on have not performed at the level that the Ford Foundation thinks that they should. Number one, which I think we could all take away with, just quickly, I know we're all in a hurry. When you first bring on a new person on the board, they should have a binder with the mission statement, the bylaws, what's expected of them, and all this stuff. There was only one entity in the whole room that had it all together really well, and that was the YMCA. But there were other tidbits that were practical and informative that you could really walk away with and improve your board right away, and I was so impressed with it. So, but anyway, that's something you might want to think about, because none of the boards have done that for me. And onward, the Collier board board meeting has been canceled for next week. Friends of Fair board meeting was canceled Wednesday night. And the LAFCO board meeting, because the Board of Supervisors were running late, we did not have a quorum. However, we had, you should appreciate this, we did have myself and one other board member and then a member at large. So we actually thought we could vote, and apparently after the second vote, our legal advisor said, no, we can't vote. So that was a learning experience. A member at large doesn't have that, unless they're, yeah, I was just surprised. So, interesting, and that's all.
And that's it?
Right,
Yes.
yeah. As
That's
far-
interesting, that's not the way we do it at LTC.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, different.
Okay, as far as I know, the Fire Safe Council meeting is on for next
Oh,
Tuesday.
really?
And I think it's very, very important. Now, hopefully it will continue, because our rainfall is 1/3 of normal now. We're gonna have a very severe fire season coming
Yes,
up.
it is.
And that could be really double trouble with this COVID-19 and fires.
Combination, yeah,
Oh my
especially if we have
gosh.
any big fires and
Yep.
we end up having our fire crews together
Yep.
like we had, it's be really dangerous time
So I'll
this
keep
year.
the council informed of anything that comes up as long as we have our meetings.
Yeah, well, great,
Yeah.
thank you. The Siskiyou Homelessness Coalition, we canceled our meeting too, just because of all the concerns and whatnot. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, just make it, we talked before, about the baseline for my, structure improvement plan, so I'd like to see in real close future that being brought back up again. That would be, going from 20,000 to 30,000 baseline for when you do infrastructure, improvements on that, where we have to do improvements to the sidewalks and whatnot, so I wanna definitely see that not get forgotten. Another thing I'd like to bring up too is the possibility of us looking at doing, an election for electing letting the citizens elect the mayor instead of us nominating the mayor or voting on city council. I know we've talked, Debbie and I have talked about this before, and I think.
I brought it up a couple times.
Yes, and I think it's something that we should, definitely address in the future, see with that, so I'd like that brought up on a future agenda. Obviously, it was kind of a crazy time, so I know it's not something that's
That
gonna
would
be brought
have
up
to be
right
approved by
away.
the voters.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. That way, it's the voters vote for the mayor in the future, and not us as a council. So, I think it's very important that it gives more accountability for the mayor / the council by having the voters vote in the mayor instead of us. I think it could be good all the way around. I think that it may make the citizens feel like they have more a valuable role and a valuable input towards the council by having an elected mayor. So, other than that, I'm gonna cut it short and say that, make sure you wash your hands. My wife works for Dr. Kopackoff, and that's the number one thing she preaches on me every day. When I walk in the door, go wash your hands, right off the bat. So wash your hands and keep your safe distance. And with that in mind, meeting adjourned, and we're gonna go to closed session. Thank you.